My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
Welcome into the Wednesday edition of Judd's Hockey Show, which is, of course, Judd. It is Declan and our friend Jesse Pierce, who joins us every week to provide some insight on what is going on with your favorite hockey team. Of course, you can also find Jesse with the Bar Down Beauties podcast that she does, and NHL.com covering the Wild. All right, folks, this is a great week. Trade deadline week. I love trade deadlines. I know people's lives are in upheaval, but that's what makes our lives fun. So I want to start here. Yesterday, Jesse, we get news that Bill Guerin has acquired Marcus Johansson for a third-round pick in 2024 from the Capitals to bring him back to play on probably the second line. My guess is he's going to play on a line with Boldy. He then acquires, Guerin does, Gustav Nyquist, who, for a fifth-round pick this year, Gustav Nyquist is out currently with a shoulder injury. Guerin wouldn't give you a timetable. I believe it was you who asked specifically on when he might be back. Clearly, the hope, though, is the end of the regular season and the playoffs. So I'll start with you, Jesse, and then to you, Dex. The deadline is Friday afternoon. Do you think that the Wild is done wheeling and dealing?
No. And again, we've talked about it before. I would have been fine if Guerin didn't do anything this year. I would have been content with him sitting pat. And these two additions in Nyquist and Johansson, obviously, Minnesota Wild fans might remember from the 2021 season. They might not, because he was hurt for the majority of that season. Nyquist has played against Wild. Those two guys coming in, it's for picks. So I think that's okay. I'm not completely against. You're not giving up a whole lot for them. The reason I think that there's something more to it is because Bill Guerin's always scheming. He's always cooking. He's always working up something. So I just have this inkling that, you know, maybe getting these two guys is to package and move elsewhere again. You never know. I mean, that could be a possibility. I'm not fully convinced that he's completely done. I mean, those names that we have floated out before, Sam Steele, Jordan Greenway, Matt Dumba, they're still on this team as of today at 12:06 p.m. a Wednesday. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see at least one of them part ways with the Wild by Friday.
So if it was just Johansson, I think I would just be a little confused. Like, I get it to a degree. And a third-round pick for a guy who you kind of know but is not the same player he used to be. He went on a great cup run with the Capitals when they won like 6 years ago, and obviously, he's familiar with Guerin. He's been on numerous playoff teams, so I got that, but I didn't think that was going to be a needle-moving move for them. The Nyquist ones is really interesting, though, right? Like, he's still on IR. The league sent out the weird memo that, hey, if you're going to long-term injury these guys and then, you know, Tampa Bay Lightning your way into activating these dudes in a playoff run like Toronto and Tampa have done in years past, there could be penalties there. But if Nyquist comes back, a guy who was really good in Detroit, maybe not the same prime player he was when he was with the Red Wings, all of a sudden, if you're telling me you add Johansson, you add Nyquist, you only gave up basically one of your true draft picks, right? Because the Nyquist acquisition was the Bruins' fifth-round pick that they threw your way just a few days ago. Well, all of a sudden, you basically just bought in two forwards to plug into your top nine, essentially, for all of a third-round pick. So does it make the Wild like a legit Stanley Cup contender? No. Do I feel better about their roster than I did before yesterday took place? For sure I do. I think their roster moves a little bit better. But to answer Judd's question, I agree with Jesse that I think there's still something else potentially in the works here. It's actually pretty remarkable that there was so many trades yesterday, and we're still, as we record this, about 48 hours plus from the deadline still taking place. So I think there's still probably one more move up Bill Guerin's sleeve.
I feel like what both of you guys said is exactly right. I feel like there's one more move that we don't necessarily see yet. Like, I'm curious here. I don't think they're going to acquire another just guy to sort of just plug in. I feel like there's something going on, to use Jesse's term, cooking here, that Bill Guerin, you know, Bill doesn't, I give him credit at his press conferences, and I think Jesse can attest to this as well. He doesn't really lie. If he doesn't want to answer a question, he won't. He'll just say, I'm, because, you know, on Nyquist, when he was asked, is he skating it? He's like, I don't want to go there. So, like, he just wouldn't, he didn't want to lie. But when you asked Bill Guerin at the presser yesterday, and just sort of jokingly, because the answer didn't come as a surprise, are you done yet? And he's like, well, There was a glint in his eye that I saw that didn't indicate to me that it's going to be like, I'm not done yet and there's a fourth line guy. I don't know what it is, but as we of course love to do at Score North, recklessly speculate, Jesse. I feel like there's something else coming. I feel like it's going to involve Jordan Greenway going. And I don't know that it's necessarily going to just be a move for the rest of this season, which, to be clear, Johansson and Nyquist are pending unrestricted free agents. I just think that there's something bigger in the works here that Guerin at least is going to try. It might not work, but then he's going to try.
I would completely agree. I think you nailed it. That would have been my add on to our previous statements that all three of us agree. And I think the player that he does bring in, should he do that, is going to be a longer term player. I know people are still chirping in the background about Brock Besser. Is that what he's working on? Maybe. I still don't see it. I still don't see the money and the financials working, but I do. I just think you're absolutely right. Bill doesn't like to lie to us, but he also can give us the lip service appropriately as a general manager. I think the other tell for me was with Dean Evson post game as well, because we had the chance to kind of address him about the trades, and you could sense there is going to be some additional movement. Now, naturally, there probably has to be. You now have 2 extra forwards sitting out. What do you do with those guys? How beneficial is it going to be to continuously healthy scratch probably a Mason Shaw? And then I don't think we'll ever see Sam Steele play for the Minnesota Wild again. But it's exciting. I mean, you look at what Bill Guerin did last year, kind of out of nowhere, getting Marc-Andre Fleury in and bringing Jacob Middleton, Nick Delorier. I mean, in last year's team, again, completely different than what you're seeing from this year. Last year, he went all in. But this year, he still has belief that it's a team that can do okay in the playoffs. I think he's probably as honest with himself as the Wild fan base is, that they're not true contenders. You look at the Bostons, you look out east, and those teams are Colorado, who's now coming as well, or even Dallas. I mean, Minnesota's just not there, but that's okay. I think he is going to make it a very competitive run, though. I mean, Bill Guerin, like any former or professional athlete, will tell you he's competitive. He doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to be embarrassed. He doesn't want to be kicked out after the first round. You'll see him cook a little bit longer, better than Russell Wilson did in Denver, for sure.
Dex, go ahead.
Yeah, and if they want someone else that perks their interest, I know the Besser one's been the one that everyone's kind of been circling. He's the Minnesota ties and whatnot, but the contract's a little tricky. I think Bill will do it for the right. I don't think he's like desperate to get him, right? Like I don't think he's like chomping at the bit. If the right offer kind of approaches here as the deadline nears, then I think he could pull the trigger. I know Pittsburgh has expressed some interest in him as well, Besser, that is. So if something else makes sense, I think they're probably going to do it. But if it's Besser, I think all the stars kind of basically have to align, and kind of what Jesse is saying, I think at the end of the day, it just becomes a little bit too complicated. And is it a conversation that probably gets revisited in the summer when things might be a little bit easier to figure out with it being post the deadline and post cap space and all that situation? So curious how it all rolls out, but I think there is probably one more move up the sleeve.
So this has also gotten weird because, like, this team, 3 weeks ago was 10 points out of first place. They were a fringe playoff team. They still aren't a slam dunk for the playoffs, but after they beat the Islanders 2-1 in a shootout last night, I believe they are 1 point right now as we speak out of first place in the Central, and like 2 points behind the overall Western Conference leader in the Golden Knights. So I guess here's my question too, and I can't get a feel for where Bill would prioritize this. But the reality is they still can't really score goals. Like, they had 1 goal last night, and the Islanders basically did what you're going to see in the playoffs, which is they physically attempted to double team and manhandle Kaprizov, which you should do. So my question is, from a scoring standpoint, who's left, and what would they, like, how much are they influenced now by being a point out of first place, but Colorado's coming? And the other thing is Bill Guerin, because Dean probably is Bill Guerin convinced that this team can actually make a playoff run based on this run of games, since it looked like they might be sellers 3 weeks ago or so at the trade deadline?
I mean, I think it's a fair question. I think we could all agree that the way the Wild have played as of late certainly has maybe changed our opinion on who they are. I think they have finally just committed and I hate repeating myself, they committed to the identity we all knew they were going to be, this defense stingy team. And that's worked out for Minnesota Wild teams of the past, Judd, as you know, right? 2003, that squad was very stingy defensively. I mean, granted, yes, the league has shifted over to being a more high octane offensive game, but if you have a defense like Minnesota has been able to do with a goaltender like Filip Gustavsson there, you can still win some games. Again, they're not the fun games necessarily. They're the tight physical games. That being said, I don't know. It's hard because you look at the players out there and what some of these higher, bigger names have gone for. How much does Bill really want to do? Because as you'd mentioned, sure, he might have a little bit more belief, but I don't think he's naive enough to say like, oh, this is the year the Minnesota Wild can go to the Cup. So you don't want to burn your future. And Bill Guerin has been very adamant about that. Even yesterday, he said, I'm not giving away our future of this organization. So I think he's going to remain steadfast in that. JVR is another name that I think people have been floating out there. That doesn't do a whole lot for me either. He's kind of on the tail end of his career. So the answer is I don't have an answer for you, Judd, which is rare for me. I like to pride myself.
I know, you always do.
I always have an answer, but again, I'm kind of content with where they're at right now. I would have been content without the 2 additions yesterday. I agree with Dex. Gustav Nyquist was on my fantasy hockey team for a couple years when I did very well. He has a lot of potential, a lot of upside for as little as he got. So he's a little bit more exciting for me. But otherwise, I mean, I don't know that there's one name that I need to circle and say, Billy, go get our guy.
Yeah, and they've basically added 2 forwards for the cost of a 3rd round pick. So they've made themselves a little bit deeper. There's guys that are both those guys in Johansson, and if Nyquist comes back, have played in some playoff games too. I wouldn't be shocked if this is it. I just think there's something else obviously still in the works to make them a little bit better. And thankfully, to Jesse's point, you're not in the Eastern Conference, right? Like if the Wild were in the East, this would be a gong show. And I don't think we're having a very similar conversation because there's basically 4 to 5 teams, at least I look at in the East, that I could say, yeah, they could win the Stanley Cup. In the West, it's a complete wide open race right now. You don't have to go through any of those Eastern Conference teams until you're God willing in the Stanley Cup. But I think I wouldn't be shocked if this is it, but I bet there's maybe one more thing to potentially make them better if Bill Guerin wants to do so.
Toronto has gone absolutely crazy. Kyle Dubas, he's probably going to be fired because I don't think it's going to work, but what the hell is going on there? Yeah, I know he's made like 6 trades.
Yeah, the amount of teams that have given up to thus far already. We're not even to Friday. Like that's what's shocked me. Like, Nashville, they've just given up. Columbus, obviously. Washington, see ya. Like it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's pretty bizarre too, because Dubas is basically saying, if I get fired, I'm leaving the next guy with nothing. Like I am, and I kind of like it.
He's just cleaning the cupboards out. Yeah. Like that job's going to be a terrible job. You're going to have nothing left and a bunch of age. Ryan O'Reilly with his walker and the tennis balls on it is going to come into your old folks home for the Leafs and be like, "Hi everybody, I'm here." Let's talk about, and I feel like we keep going back there, but I can't help it at this point. Filip Gustavsson. Okay. First of all, Bill Guerin. Congratulations. I don't know what you saw coming here, but I mean, this guy again last night, I mean, how many grade A's did he stop? The Islanders in overtime, I think they had like 5 shots. Zach Parise could have had a hat trick. Thank God he didn't, but he could have had a hat trick. Filip Gustavsson has been, I think, one of the revelations, not just this season for the Wild, but in Minnesota Sports Acquisition Hall of Fame. Like as far as my expectation being, oh, this guy's a backup. That's too bad. Cam Talbot should have come back. I tweeted last night, they should send Cam and his wife thank you notes for alienating themselves out of town. I'm serious. Without Filip Gustavsson, this team, I think, is a wild card team right now. I mean, Fleury he's not been consistent, and I don't think he's been terrible. But this whole nonsense of Dean and the players being like, our goaltending is fantastic. No, Filip Gustavsson has been absolutely one of the stories, the unsung heroes of the National Hockey League season.
And luckily for all of us, Filip Gustavsson doesn't have a wife that can take to Twitter and stir the pot even more. So that's a promising thing heading into playoffs. But I agree. I was going to ask Dean like that, but I didn't have the gall to do it because I wanted him to say, Filip Gustavsson is your number one. There is not that's what I want you to say. Just tell me. Like, you won't tell me it's a rotation. You won't tell me this. And I think the thing that works with it too is I've seen Marc-Andre Fleury around the rink, and it's not like he's ho hum pissed off. Of course he wants to play. He's Marc-Andre Fleury, but I think that helps. I think he's incredibly supportive of Filip Gustavsson getting this. I think he knows that Gus is playing better because Marc-Andre Fleury wants to win games more than he wants to start them. That's the kind of player he is. And I think the love of us more than him just stopping the puck. He has the same jovial demeanor no matter what. Like, he is just straightforward. Yep, I'm just out there doing my job. I think I joked with him yesterday. Hey, just another night at the office. He's like, yep, just a Tuesday, 7 to 10. And he's just doing his thing, and it's fantastic. It's so exciting to see because, like you, Judd, when the trade went down, as much as I wasn't on the Cam Talbot train, I was thinking, okay, well, Filip Gustafsson's really going to struggle. Maybe Velstead comes up earlier, whatever. I just didn't see it working. I was like, this guy is a bona fide backup, no doubt. Well, I ate my words. I ate crow, whatever you want to say it, because he has proven wrong. And I think he just needed that opportunity. Granted, the players in front of him are much better than what he had in Ottawa as well. So certainly that lends itself. But yeah, I mean, Filip Gustavsson just continues to impress. The saves that he's making are steady. He sees the puck. And again, it's different goaltending than Marc-Andre Fleury, which brings a good tandem moving forward here.
Yeah, I mean, it's reminiscent of when they obviously acquired Dubnyk at the deadline, 6-7 years ago, and basically saved their season. Now, Dubnyk ended up starting like every single game, and luckily you don't have to run Gus Bus out there every single time. Your luxury is that now your new backup per se is Marc-Andre Fleury, which is a good thing to have in your back pocket. I think I was telling you guys the last few weeks that even though Gus was trending in the right direction and Fleury was, kind of riding this roller coaster, that I thought push came to shove. If they make the playoffs, they're probably still going to give it to Fleury because he's the veteran and he's a Stanley Cup guy. At this point, no, there's no chance. I mean, right. There is absolutely no chance they do that. Now, last year with St. Louis, right, they started Husso, who had a great year, kind of out of left field to a degree, and then they turned to Binnington. He ends up saving their series, and they move on to the second round. Obviously, however the Wild get past a first-round series, you would take, but it's a good luxury to have that if Gus Bus, who is probably in line to start the first two games of a playoff series, falters, or if they want to change, well, you got Marc-Andre Fleury behind him. And it's not just the tandem, to your point, of last year with Talbot and Fleury, which was two different guys, but it didn't feel all that great. And then the noise came in from the background and then became so much more of a distraction. Talbot's agent certainly didn't help the case either. It wasn't just his wife. But I think with this situation, it kind of reminds me of St. Louis last year with Husso and Binnington behind them. And it's a great problem to have that Marc-Andre Fleury, a Vezina guy who's won cups and has been in Stanley Cups before, is probably your backup going into a postseason series.
I'm just absolutely amazed every time I watch Gus now. He's so technically sound. He's so quiet. And Jess, you're exactly right. Fleury's fun to watch when he's playing well. But, I mean, he's flopping. He's doing the old school thing, which, by the way, I love to see. Yeah. But when you watch Gustavsson, and he was talking post-game last night about how he cheats sometimes and how he tries to, lure the shooter into passing by acting like he's prepared for the shot and then, of course, pushes off and slides over. All of those things, I mean, he just seems to have such a good plan. And I don't know if the coaching here has helped, if to Declan's point, just, the Sens were such a mess. Because it's certainly not like he is not facing good shots here. It's not like the Wild is doing what they did with Jacques in 2003, where Roley and Manny didn't really face great shots sometimes because the team was trapping and the shots were all from the outside. We saw several grade A from the slot chances just last night. So I marvel at his style. And the one reason why I think, because I've been debating when the playoffs start, can he play like this? The pressure goes up. But the one reason why I think it might be possible is I think within his technique, he's so sound. Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like it doesn't look, I should say, like it's a fluke. It doesn't look like he's just gotten hot. It looks like he actually has a strategy and a style that can be repeated. And so that's why, and I might be totally wrong here, but that's why when I watch him, I actually think that this is a guy that could get on a roll in the playoffs and be fundamentally sound enough to save some games.
I'd agree. I think he's very methodical in his approach to playing the game without question. And I think he's the the positive and upside of him, goaltenders are quirky. He's not really that quirky. He's just kind of himself. And maybe that's the good thing. I mean, you look at how many games he has earned that extra point for Minnesota by getting them into overtime, by getting them into the shootout. And he still remains strong even in those situations. He's like, I don't feel any pressure. I just keep doing what I'm doing. I mean, again, we've asked him time and time again, not that he's going to give us a different answer, but it's like, well, what is it? Like, what is it about you? What's the secret sauce? And it's just him being him. And the plus side is he's a young goaltender. Again, a good trade for Bill Guerin, as it turns out. And I enjoy having him a part of this tandem because, again, you will see Marc-Andre Fleury probably get in there a little bit too, but I hope that Dean Evason rides Gus while he's feeling it.
Yeah,
you just want Dean to say he's our number one goaltender,
just say
Jesse.
it. I was
That's
so
all
close
you want.
asking Judd.
You're gonna go up and take him by the collar and be like, just say it.
Yeah, take him by the collar. And actually, you know what you should do, Jess? I know you love cooking with Jesse. You should make sure those knives, are nice and sharp. And just, if you have to put a blade by there. And you know what? You can go to Vivront. You can go to mybadddullknives.com. With all that cooking you do, Jess, make sure those knives are sharpened. I see your Instagram stories. We see them all. Okay, you're making sure you got the great meals going out there. But someone like Judd and I, especially when I moved in with my fiance with my serrated dull knives, okay, I needed some knife sharpening. I went to my guy Joseph at Vivront. He helped me out. It's okay to admit that you don't know what you're doing with your knives, and you got to have some sharp knives for cooking so you're not mashing that stuff. Go to mydullknives.com. It's in the YouTube bio below right now. Go get those knives sharpened. And if Jesse wants to take one to Dean just so he can get the dang answer out,
don't
do
threaten
whatever
him.
you
No.
do.
We don't want to
condone
incarcerate
this.
She has kids.
I do. It's okay. Whatever we have to do to get this answer out of them. But go to Vivront, go check them out, and go check out our guy Joseph.
I'll take one for the team if it gets us the answers we need. The answers
I'll do whatever
we need.
You can't handle the truth, Dean. So in the press conference that Bill did after the two trades were made yesterday as well, you guys, he mentioned the fact that he is, and was asked about this, that he's comfortable with the blue line. He said, I'd like Brodin back. No, duh. And it sounds like Brodin's not going to be playing anytime soon, but it's not going to be long-term. Read into that what you will. But that being said, how comfortable are you with the defense right now? Brodin coming back is going to help a ton. But I'm just saying, John Merrill, to me, they play him every single game. But there are some times where I'm like, oh boy, Goligoski is still an older guy. Addison last night, so he was the second guy on the ice in OT defensively, which I do applaud. He should be, not Goligoski. But that being said, he also got outworked for a puck through a half-hearted cross-check that didn't get called, and Gustavsson had to make a big save. Now, Kalen came down after that and damn near scored. So that's the good side. But how comfortable, as we approach Friday, are you with the defense, with Brodin being out for a while?
I think you said the big concern I have is John Merrill. I think you're just seeing night in and night out egregious turnovers. You saw one that resulted in their first goal from the Islanders by Josh Bailey after he just got outworked and out hustled by Josh Bailey. So I think, but then again, you look at it, that's your bottom pairing. How much should a bottom pairing truly impact your team? Probably not that much. I think once Brodin comes back, I feel pretty comfortable with it. I really love Jacob Middleton and Jared Spurgeon. They're your top pair for a reason. I think they are everything. I think Dumba has stepped up his game a smidge, not a lot. I'm not going to give him a whole lot of credit, but he has. He's not been as concerning. And I think Kalen Addison, he'll get back there. Again, I think he still is fighting through the fact that he was a healthy scratch and he's had to refine his game a little bit. Dean and Bill Guerin were very adamant that he needs to be a better two-way player. So I think he's trying to not change too much of the offensive side of what he was, which was the big tout on him. That's what everybody loved about him, but also still play this very defense first game. So I think you'll see him get better. But yeah, Merrill and Goligoski, to me, that would be the only concern. But again, when they're your bottom pair anyway, generally speaking, it is what it is.
Yeah, pending a setback or if Brodin indeed misses a playoff series, completely different conversation. Like if they didn't have Brodin to enter the playoffs, then I would be pretty concerned there. But to Jess's point, I mean, if those are your back-end guys, and sure, they still have to play probably 12 to 13 minutes a night, so they can't just not be playing, I'm okay with that. I mean, the Wild, this has been their bread and butter, right? I mean, it's been Spurgeon and Brodin, and Dumba's been here forever, and the supplement of Jacob Middleton last year was a great addition. So not too concerned, but as long as Brodin comes back, I'm feeling pretty good about it.
So my thought is this, especially going into the potential playoffs. I think there should be some question about Merrill playing at times. And if you are as hard up as Dean appears to be to continue playing Goose, that I would be comfortable scratching Merrill for Goligoski. I think the decision should come down to those two, not Kalen. Kalen brings you enough offense. Now, here's the thing, though, and I was watching it last night again. The Addison fix is not that hard. His defensive zone positioning, his fundamentals are just not great. That needs to be fixed. And I think that can be fixed through coaching. Like he gives up the inside at times. Like there's certain things he just doesn't do with his body. And I know he's not big, but Jared Spurgeon's a small man too. But Kalen Addison brings you a spark offensively. And I mean, good Lord knows you need all the offense you can possibly get here, right? So I actually think that if you have a playoff series and Brodin is back, that a decision should probably come down to Goligoski or Merrill. And it's like Merrill can't sit. I mean, it's like oh no, we can't sit him. First of all, I disagree with that. And the other thing is, I think Greenway's gone by Friday. I think Bill Guerin is telling the truth. I think Dumba is now going to be used or is being used as the Wild's own rental. He obviously means too much internally to trade as well. So Dumba's here. Jesse, I'm with you. I think his play has picked up. I think being scratched, Eureka, being scratched works. Jordan Greenway didn't get scratched. Why not? I have no idea. But I really do think that there should be more of a conversation about should John Merrill play every single game, especially once you get to the playoffs.
It is curious. Like, I'm always curious as to the favoritism, and we've talked about this before, just even in the press box. Like, Dean likes his veteran guys. He likes the guys that have played the game for a while. He likes the guys that have played the old style version of the game as well. Alex Goligoski, namely, is one. Yeah, and not what John Merrill has done to be in such favor and such high graces amongst the coaching staff, because he's not been completely, oh my God, awful, but there are plenty of nights where I'm like, he should not be playing tonight. Like I would rather have Alex Goligoski sometimes than John Merrill out there. That's how bottom rung he has been. But yeah, I mean, I think I would like to see Kalen Addison in there more often than not, almost all the time, frankly, because I still believe that the young defensemen need to work through their mistakes. They need to be a part of this game. You want Kalen Addison to be a part of your future with the Minnesota Wild, so you need to let him continue to play. Let him suck for a time or two, because odds are he still brings that offensive upside that John Merrill sure as heck doesn't. So there's that to be considered.
Yeah, you just got to take the handcuffs off him and just kind of let him play a little bit and understand that there's some risk reward there, right there. That was a lot of the narrative and conversation around Matt Dumba when he first came up. Unfortunately, you kind of saw it bring its ugly head back at the beginning of this season, but he's a young defenseman. He's going to make mistakes, but he also brings a lot of positives when he's on the ice, and he quarterbacks a power play. So I think the last thing you should be doing is penalizing a guy like that just so you can play John Merrill or Alex Goligoski. To me, I think that's kind of criminal and it's not fair to Kalen Addison either.
Well, and scratching for a wake-up call, in my opinion, is fine. Scratching to forget the guy is not fine. And with Kalen, they basically just said, oh, okay, we've won some games. You're done here. And so he couldn't get back in. I have zero problem with, a healthy scratch or two. It's when it turns into 4 or 5 games, you're like, is this smart? And again, Dean has to understand this. I know he loves how this team plays, but you have an insy-bincy piece of offensive potential here. You can't scratch your offensive guys, which leads me to the last point. Ryan Reaves, congratulations. His first goal of the season. Great guy. He is as they say in the sport, a beaut. But not only that, he engaged in his second or third fight? It might have been a second. Mm-hmm. Big Ross Johnston of the Islanders and Reaves going toe to toe in what was a Judd from his teenage years hockey fight. I absolutely loved it. But how about that hand-eye coordination? Revo knocking in the Greenway shot, big rebound from Sorkin, who's really good. And Reaves comes by, keeps the stick so it's not a high stick, knocks the puck in. That's a nice goal. And Jesse, the best part was when he said he took his kid to a youth hockey game and the little kids were mocking Ryan Reaves saying, I got more points than you. And he said, okay, take that.
He told the kid to eat it. He looked straight into the camera and said, so eat it. And he was like, sorry, he was probably 8. I shouldn't be saying that. But
that guy's great.
He's what a personality. And I think you heard that was the big reason Bill Guerin wanted him in there. Sure, there's the physical aspect of it, but his personality really shined through yesterday. He said, yeah, I'm sure they're happy. They traded for a 50 goal scorer when they got me. So I'm, glad I can start. I mean, he was just very self-deprecating, having a good time. A great goal, a great drop pass back to Greenway too. That was something that I didn't even realize he had some of that awareness once in a while. So good for him, fun for him. Maybe another goal or two this season could be helpful. I mean, that goes for not just him, everybody on the offensive side of things. That's not Grill.
No kidding. And it's just it's hilarious to me because so many Wild fans were just so sick of him when he was with the Knights and the Blues, and they hate him. And then all of a sudden, and I remember Judd and I kind of having the same conversation, like, yeah, he's a pain in the ass, but if he was on your team, you'd love him. And you got Wild fans who are just bitching up and down that they can't stand him, and he's such a punk, and he's bad for the game. All of a sudden, and everyone's a lot quiet when Ryan Reaves is on your team like that. I find that very interesting.
The funny thing is he's slow, but he actually has decent hands. I've noticed he can make some plays. Like there are some guys who have hands of stone, right? He actually can, to your point, Jesse, the drop pass. And I've seen him make some nice plays. He's behind the play a lot, which makes it tough. But yeah, and he's going to be, when the playoffs arrive, and I know that there's not fighting, but it's going to be very interesting to see if he plays and how he's used, because somebody's going to have to create some fear to open up room for 97. Like that's the thing. I'm not saying that you need fights, but that's a guy that can actually, if a couple of guys are trying to rough up Kaprizov and there's a price to pay, it gets a little bit tougher to complete your assignment of trying to rough up Kaprizov, which I think was as easy as it got for a team like the Blues previously. It shouldn't be as easy now.
He has that nice presence. It's funny. I told Ryan Reaves that he had silky mitts. He's like, no. I've never had that word used with my name before, which is probably, so there's a first time for everything. No, his presence, you've seen it already. Since Ryan Reaves has been acquired, it's been a lot quieter around some of his physical players and just his general presence and demeanor out there. People don't want to answer that bell necessarily. So between him and Foligno, it's a good thing going forward.
What would happen if one shift a game in the playoffs, it was Hartman?
No, don't do it. Don't
Kaprizov and Revo just abusing everybody else on the ice.
That's the thing. Kaprizov,
Dave
that's the thing I
Semenko,
love about
Gretzky
Kaprizov. He can handle his own. That little tree trunk of legs, he's a beast out there.
As Flower said, he's got the huge ass. He's got that big ass. That reverse hit on Goudreau on Sunday was a butt hit. It's a great hit. He is strong as hell. Jesse, thanks much. As always, Judd's Hockey Show. Catch her, as I said at the outset of our show, Bar Down Beauties. Also, read her work, NHL.com on the Wild. Declan, why don't you give the rest of the particulars, and we'll be done.
Yeah, hit the subscribe button. Daily Minnesota sports entertainment right here on Score North. This is Judd's Hockey Show. We'll be back if we break down any other big trades. Well, of course, we'll be ready to break down any other Wild games as well. So hit that subscribe button to be alerted for anything on Judd's Hockey Show related. And pass, shoot, score.
There's no room for petty bull.